Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Go With Your Gut podcast. My name is Lauren Dreyer, and I am your host. And we have such an exciting day today because we have Charli Matthews with us, who is the founder and CEO of Empowering Pumps and Empowering Women in Industry. And this is a special treat for me, guys, because I have looked up to her, and I'll be honest, I've never even met her in person, and I get to soon. But she has such a great story. So I will let her introduce herself really quick.
Thank you, Lauren. And I can't wait to meet you in person as well. We're going to have a blast. So I'm Charli. I am a mom. I have 3 children. I'm an entrepreneur. I love women in industry. Really, the whole kind of pump and equipment industry as a whole is where I started my business. I sold advertising. I feel like I've been in sales the last 20 years, but really just in the industry and getting to know, so many wonderful people along the way. But, I met you, Lauren, through Empowering Women in Industry, and just amazed at all you've accomplished in that time as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So you've made yourself very successful, and that's kind of where I want to go, because it takes a lot of gut intuition to do what you've done, and even to get past. I know that you've had some roadblocks. So I want to start by talking about a big pivotal moment that you've had in your life that you had to just rely on intuition and what your gut was telling you, rather than maybe what other people were saying.
Well, 2 things, jump out. One is when I started my company, I think that was a big risk. And, even in my household, I'm the risk taker. So my husband, he was like, I don't know, and so I think I kind of just, knew that I could do it because there were people in industry that were our supporters and said, if you do this, then I'm behind you. So I am, I think, a little bit of a risk taker anyway, so that, I'm going to be the one that believes that I can do something. The other one, kind of after being established in a company in the male dominated space, I decided that I wanted to help women. And if 80% of your audience is males and you start sending out things directly, scripted for females, then you kind of have that, is this the right decision? Even there were, moments when we did get pushback from that audience, and, that's where the real hard work came in. But at the beginning, I think it was just seeing the need and knowing that I could fulfill that need, and that I had the experience to do it. And so there is a lot of that self-belief that I could probably contribute that to my mom, who always told us that we could do anything. And then, just proving it to myself, with the years of experience and the support that I've had from my community. It really has been my cheerleaders that I've met along the way that helped me get through those moments.
Absolutely. And you just said something that has been honestly a recurring thing in my life lately. And that is really having the belief in yourself. And I know I was reading all about your story yesterday on your website, and I learned some things that I didn't know about you. But that's been such a theme in my life, of just getting the belief in yourself, because everybody else can have that belief in you. But if it's not in you, it doesn't matter what anybody else says, because it's got to be there first. Can you talk a little bit about that within yourself?
Yeah. And I think part of that is hard to just believe in yourself, right? I think there are ways that we are able to do that. One thing that I heard recently that just really sticks with me is, I believe in you, So even if you don't believe in you, I do. So take my belief and move forward. So I do believe that there are people that come into your life that have faith in you or have that belief in you, and you can see it. And then you have to kind of, okay, in this moment, I'm doubting myself. I realize I'm doubting myself. Then what do I do? And then have skills. And it is a skill. It's something that you can learn, that you can practice. When doubts come up, you can replace those doubts with proof of things that you have accomplished. Put that mirror up in front of your face and say, like, okay, these are the things that I actually did, and believe in them. One of my friends used to say, I just wish that you could see yourself the way that I see you. And so I don't think it's natural. I don't think that I always do that. I think I come across as having a lot of confidence and, have it all and all these things. But, I've had a struggle. I've had a lot of different things that I've had to go through. But I do have faith, and I think I have faith, both spiritual faith and then just the faith that good things are going to happen, that I can believe in that. And then, I prove it to myself. I'm like, okay, let's take this risk. Let's do this thing. It worked. And really try to, write those things down. I always journal, and, I'd love to go back and read a journal that I wrote. And I'm like, wow, I was really smart back then, like I wish I could remember, the stuff that I've already written,
Absolutely.
Wonderful stuff.
So I was talking to somebody yesterday about the whole, taking the risk and proving it to yourself, because that's one thing that I've learned about myself. I didn't used to trust myself to figure out those hard things. And a lot of people, I think myself used to be included, I used to find those as roadblocks of, I can't do this. And I didn't trust myself to figure it out. And therefore, I didn't move forward with it. And I have found that actually, heck, I had to convince myself a lot of times to be like, okay, we're going to see how this goes and whatever.
It's the step. That's right. I think it's action. No matter if you believe in yourself or not, it's like you can take an action and you can do one thing. You can move, one step further or closer to whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. And so, I've had open heart surgery. I know that is kind of out there in my story now, as a survivor of that, which is still kind of weird to say. But the only way that I could get to the stage for empowering women was to walk down the hall. I love to tell the story about, taking a deep breath, because that was the first thing that I had to get to do. And then it was, from the bed to the chair, from the chair down the hall and around the room. And it's, if we can think about that as just like the one step, the one thing that you can do, even if you don't believe, because there were moments like I was like, how am I ever going to, stand on a stage and talk to people again? But I did know that I could take a step, or I could move a little bit, or I could take a breath. And so, whatever it is, that first smallest win that you can accomplish, and, that fuels the fire within, gives you those much needed endorphins kicking around. And so, reward yourself for that.
And that is so key, because I think so many people wait for those big milestones. And it's like, okay, once I get here, I'm going to reward myself, instead of saying, look what I just freaking did. Like, I was terrified to even build this or make this. Like, good gosh, I was terrified to start this, build a website, all the things. And then you get to the other side of that and you almost look what I just did.
Yeah. And what was I waiting on?
Right. And that kind of goes back to me with the taking that action and figuring it out and learning to trust yourself that you will figure it out. Because you said it, taking that action.
And look at all the things that you've done before. I think a lot of the times we don't validate what it is really hard. All the stuff that we do and all the things that we juggle. I mean, really just getting up and getting ready for the women out there. It's an extra 20 minutes to dry our hair. There's all these things that, goes into business and life. And we just need to remember to celebrate ourselves and all that we've accomplished, even in those, I got everybody food today or whatever it is moments. They're important.
They are, absolutely. So one thing I know, and I'd like to see what your take is on this. Learning to, I feel like, especially me, I make huge roadblocks in my head, whether they are there or not. Mm-hmm. And most of the time they are drastically smaller than what I make them out to be. And I'm very much still learning to get past that and to look at them and say, I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but we're going to figure it out. So do you have some of those roadblocks that you've gotten through, and how did you do that?
Yeah, I think the biggest roadblock for me in my company was, really wanting to see change before it happened. Yeah. And pushing, because I'm an activator and I want to get things going. And the person or organization not being ready to do that. And I take offense or upsets me, or I don't understand, because I just, kind of run ahead of everyone else. And I've really been able to notice this in two ways. One, Change Intelligence with Barbara. She wrote that. She was a speaker at our conference, but there was a line in there, and it really she talks about, leading with your heart, your hands, in your head. And so I always thought I was a heart-centric person. I love people. I've got to be a heart person. But she actually, talks about the head being the visionary, and it really made me think, okay, I am running off because I have this vision. I'm running off and leaving everybody in the dust. I don't explain my vision. I don't explain the process and everything. Why don't they understand? And so that was really big and key for me, and just really understanding leadership styles. And then the other thing is really that emotional awareness. And when that whatever gets you upset, or you're hitting that roadblock, or you're telling yourself you can't do something, really, like, I had to dive into, why am I doing that? Right? Like, why can't I get on the stage and read from a script? Right? Because I read all the time. Like, I read on my phone, I read on the computer, I read to people. Like, why can't I read in this situation? And I really thought about it. And this younger self was telling me that I couldn't read. And so when I would start to read that, my body would just feel under attack. And I had to tell myself, like, really, I had to say to myself, you can read, you read every day. And it relaxed me, and I was able to read, so there are little things like that we don't pay attention to, because we're in the whirlwind, we're going. But when your body starts, having that throat close up, or, the blood pressure is high, or whatever that is, and it's the same thing doing it to you over and over again. That's what was really helpful to me, is to see what's making me upset. Why can't, I get over this, and so I would just say that was my leadership launchpad work that I did in a group setting, because you can learn so much from other people. You can see the stuff that you're doing to yourself in other people. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, that's what I look like when I'm just denying that I do anything well. It's just right there. So, I think it's really helpful to dive in. And again, both of these are perceptions that I had of myself.
Yes. And I think it's funny because we've kind of, with a few different little topics, everything that we've talked about is really, and I've learned this in the past few years, all this stuff can essentially be learned. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a lot of times it's not habit. It didn't used to be habit for me. I've learned to listen to myself, as you're saying, your body, all the things. And I think so many people are just not in tune, whether that's by choice or whatever the case may be. But I feel like people might brush that off so much in a way. It's like, okay, if I don't know how to do this, I'm not ever going to be able to figure it out, rather than saying, okay, that is a skill. I can learn how to do that. Okay, you just have to be conscious of it, because for one reason or another, and maybe I just love all that stuff, so I have been all in for it. I don't know. But it is such a learned thing. And it seems to me if people would actually consider that and say, okay, I can do that. I can learn how to do that. That's part of what set me a little bit more free. Still working on it. But part of what comes in for me, and I think you and I have probably talked about this before, is that piece that comes in every time we start pushing ourselves and doing something new, that word called fear.
Yeah.
And it has held me back more times than I'd like to admit. It still does. But have you ever, how do you deal with that for yourself? Because you've done a lot of big stuff.
Well, I do it with the fear. I'm not ever not scared. I'm not ever, that brave one that just went out and started her company. I was scared the whole time doing this stuff. So I like to use the word courageous, because I am doing these things, in the face of fear. I mean, standing on a stage, I was scared every single time. That's the biggest one, because your body has a physical reaction to it.
Yeah.
But, the fear is normal, and your body is like, this is unknown and trying to take care of you. But you have to look at those signals that where fear comes into play and kind of use that as fuel. So it's like, swapping that from like, oh my gosh, here I go, to, all right, it's game time. Let's get out there. So I do think that it's doing things scared, and then, reflecting and being like, wow, okay, I did that. And and I've talked a lot about that, but fear can paralyze you. It can, you're either going to run from it, you're going to, fight, or you're going to freeze. And I've done all of those things. I'm not proud of those moments. But then it's like, okay, how can I, in that moment of fear or freeze or panic, how can I take care of myself? Right. Because it really is about, understanding why you're there. Why is this important to you, your values? And if you're working within your values, then if something is attacking you, no matter what it is, then you're going to be able to know more clearly whether you should stay and do this or not. Should I be in part of this group or not? Every time I walk into this situation, this is how I feel. I don't want to do that anymore. And if it doesn't line up to your values and the why you're showing up, you're going to know that when you do that deep work on yourself to figure out, why do I really want to be here? Why do I want to lead these people? And with empowering women is easy. Rebecca said it best to me one time. She says, when we're getting all this pushback, I'm like, what are we doing? And she goes, well, we're doing it because it's important. And that's really all you need, right? If you just know that the work that you're doing is important and you're showing up and you're telling people what they need to hear. So you're not worried about your performance anymore. You're not worried about how you look, what you're saying, you're more focused on, okay, can I get this out in a way that they're going to understand it? They're going to feel something. They're going to have a memorable event. I think that's more important. Well, I know it's more important than, that fear that's blocking us. Right. And so I'm trying to think of a good fear moment where, on the other side is joy. Babies are good, like the unknown of a first baby, that's something, but, even jumping off of a cliff, where there's a waterfall and then you're swimming at the bottom, there's some really scary ones out there that I've jumped off of, and in the middle of the air, you're like, what am I doing? Why did I just jump into this waterfall? but at the end, it was pleasant. It was a joyful experience. And then you can reflect whether or not it was worth it. And, should you do that again? No, that was way too high for me. I think I don't really enjoy that. So I'm not going to go back that direction. And just that fear that, I don't believe that God gave us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline. I think I've said that before. And, if we do the work, the self-discipline work, to understand ourselves and understand what we need, what our bodies need for health and wellness, then we will have that power and we'll be able to love people. And so that verse really stands out to me, always has. And I just think it's really powerful.
Absolutely. And I have to repeat something that you said, because it is something that I live by, but the fact that you're sitting here saying, okay, you're successful, and the fact that you say, I still live with the fear, but I did it anyway. And I think that is such a powerful idea to even wrap your head around, because we let fear stop us so dang much from doing whatever it is, whatever we want.
Let me tell you something before I forget.
Yeah.
So when I was recovering, there was 2 weeks where I got out of the hospital and I was recovering, and I wouldn't raise my arms because I didn't get permission, and I was scared. Like, what will it do if because I have, this scar right here.
Right.
And so I didn't raise my hand above my head, and I go into the doctor's office 2 weeks later, and she says, you should have full range of motion. And I was like, what? I haven't even raised my hands. And so I go home and immediately start doing, a little bit more. And I was better all the way around. But it goes back to the fear, the unknown, like, can I do this? Am I allowed to do this? What's going to happen if I do this? Is like, that fear kept me from just recovering faster, right? From doing the things that my body knew how to do, but I was blocking it because I didn't know if I could do it, that fear of the unknown, or the fear of acceptance or permission that we need to do things. So that was just a little example. I think it's a real easy one to think about.
Yeah. Well, and just like you said, fear of unknown, fear of giving ourselves permission. And there's so many different types that play in, because I feel like in some way we're all afraid of the unknown. We're all afraid of what could happen if we don't figure it out. Afraid of, I don't know, whatever we're making up in our head. Let's be honest. And I just love the fact that you say, okay, I kept going. I was terrified, but I kept going, because that is a principle that I have so learned to embody with myself is, okay, let's shift the mindset. Yes, I'm terrified, but instead of letting that scared, terrified energy take control of me, let's turn it around and use it to do whatever the heck I want to do, and use it as adrenaline. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't used to know that you could do that.
Yeah.
Didn't used to know that that was a thing. And the minute I started to take the blind step, take the action, and I was like, oh, this is what I can do. And like you said, you're still terrified. You're still afraid, but it's getting past that little voice in your head that's like, yeah, I don't think so. No, this.
Yeah. And your body too, right? Your body is like programmed to be like, that is the unknown. That is not the direction you need to take. You need to stay safe. And so, we have to let our bodies know this is okay. What energy that you're feeling that, there's some fear that's that we need to pay attention to. And there's other fears that you're going to be okay, really. And so teaching your body, what's the difference? What is the difference? And sometimes there are traumas that make them exactly the same. I used to tell myself nobody cared about me if they didn't do something. So they're like, let's just say you were supposed to show up with your paper ready and you didn't do it. Well, I used to would say the whole world doesn't care about me if you, just one person, didn't do something. Like the whole world, there's no one on the planet. How silly is that, right? So I have to tell my brain, actually, all these people care about me. Here's the proof and evidence, so that my brain would stop saying that. And that is something from some type of, young kid trauma that,
Right.
you just don't know. And thankfully now, like if something happens, I don't like have this attack, right? It's like the whole world is falling in on me because I know it's just not true, And so there's so many things like that. But we do have to recognize that our body, so that's why I kind of go back to the signs of your body and making sure like you don't need to be in fight or flight just to have a phone conversation via Zoom, right? Like you shouldn't have that reaction. If you're doing that, and this is just one example, but if you're doing that, there's something else. There's
Yeah.
something else you need to dive into to try to figure out. That's what I found with like, people out in industry that disappoint me or something like that. It's more like something bigger that I was trying to accomplish and I'm disappointed or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I can even attest to that. It was probably a year and a half ago now. I was so conflicted as to why I wasn't getting anywhere with something. And I had a conversation with my mother-in-law, and she just was like, "Are you okay?" Because she could just tell something was off. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I just, I have a lot going on." And so then I got home and wrote her an email, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to tell you, like, here's all the stuff in my head." And as I'm writing this email out, I'm like, "Oh dear gosh, I am sitting here waiting silently for these two specific people to give me permission to be who I am."
Mhm.
I had no idea that that was the case. And I'm like, why the heck am I waiting for two of my family members to give me permission to be me?
Mhm.
What? And like, I had no idea that that's why I had a mental block. And from that moment on, I'm like, well, crap.
Yeah. I
That's
was
it.
doing that. I was doing that same thing when we started empowering women. I was wanting the approval of all the men that I knew. Is this
Yep.
okay? Can I do this? I mean, I remember even writing a blog about what the men could do to be a part of this, because
Yeah.
not that like, don't take that the wrong way. I want men to be involved in it and
Right.
to move, to improve. But like, that wasn't what I was doing. I was like, hey, can I do this? I need permission or somebody to tell me this is okay. And when I realized that, I know I'm pretty sure I was on a podcast with Mel. And I mean, I'm just like floodgates here. I was glad we weren't on video because I just couldn't imagine me holding myself back for that approval because you just don't know you're doing that. It's just
No.
so embedded in our everyday lives.
Yeah. And it's like, I had no idea that I wanted their approval because they just aren't people who do that.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And ever since then, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
I can breathe. So I think it's absolutely crazy that that stuff stops us.
Mhm.
And until we actually, like you said, dive deeper into it, that we realize that.
And we realize that's not the way we want to show up. We
Right.
want to trust ourselves. We want to accomplish the things that we know we can. And we want to do that because we want to help other people. I
Absolutely.
know that's true for you. And I know it's true for me. Like all of this is about developing, encouraging, lifting up other people because that's our why, that's our values.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we are just about at our time. So one more thing I wanted to ask, if you could give one piece of advice to help somebody to finally take that step and go with that gut instinct, what would it be?
My number one advice is to make time for yourself. And the only way that you're going to be able to understand that it's your gut telling you something is if you are able to listen to your body. So I would say make time for yourself, make sure that you have a health checkup so you know your baseline of where you are. And have people around you that you can, just feel like yourself, that things that bring you joy, make sure that you're doing that at least once a day, even for like a little minute or two, something that just brings you joy. It's really important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate you being on here with me. And everybody, like always, remember to go with your gut and then please keep going.